Welcome back, Frugal Firearms Podcast Nation. Now we're up to episode 26. Now, this is the second part of a two-part series with Jeff Goldstein. In episode 24, you heard him talk about his high-value training opportunities, which can be as little as free because he's running this as a charitable organization. And I encourage you not only to go back and listen to episode 24, but also to visit him at highvaluetraining.org. But now we're going to switch gears and talk about his brassbuyers.com business, which is an entirely different venture that will pick up all that brass that you have lying around. Maybe it's in buckets or bags in your garage. It's lying across the ground at your range, and he'll turn it into money, or he'll turn it into donations, or he'll turn it back into brass that you can reload. So give a listen to this entirely new subject for us. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and tell your friends about frugalfirearmspodcast.com.
Okay, Jeff, let's talk a little bit about your brass buyers business that you have on the side. As a shooter and as Frugal Firearms, we have talked about it in the past and probably need to talk about it a little bit more frequently. Reloading, particularly if you have a caliber which is a little bit more unusual, because the brass that flies out after every round, or if if you have a pistol or a revolver, you'll be extracting from your cylinder each time. Those range in price from anywhere from, a dime probably up to $1 or more, depending on the caliber, if you're shooting rifle caliber type things. So there is definitely value to retaining your brass. And as a reloader, you can get into reloading for fairly inexpensively. I mean, probably about $150 worth of initial equipment will get you into being able to reload a particular caliber. And the advantage of reloading is obviously, number one, you keep your prices down, the price of shooting, and the fact is that you can create ammunition at a time when it may not be available, like we have seen ammo crises in the past. That's one of the big advantages of being able to create your own ammunition.
And when did we cover that? Episode 6.
Yes, episode 6.
Okay, go back, people, and listen to episode 6 if you didn't already.
Yeah, and we may talk more about it because it's a subject which I very, very much enjoy, and constantly am trying to improve on it. But yeah, so talk a little bit about the your brass buyers business and how people can acquire brass if they have not been saving it, or if they want to just start off reloading. Jeff?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Thanks. So totally the opposite end of the spectrum from a charity training company. So you're right, Ken. Brass buyers came from my experiences learning how to reload. And I feel like now that I've been doing reloading as long as I have, because it's decades at this point, I got into it almost backwards. And what I mean by that is, a lot of the forums that you might log into to read, ask questions, give feedback, or whatever, people want to reload their 9mm or their 38 special, their 357, or maybe their 5.56 rifle or their 30-06 or something like that. The way I got into it was, so my son has some very unique sports and activities. He is this year going to be going into his 15th year of competitive go-kart racing,
Oh.
which ain't cheap. But
is he going to be Formula One someday? If he's 15 years, probably not.
That's just like, if you want to be an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
Exactly. When do you start playing football? So no, he's not going to be a Formula One driver. He's more of a mid-pack driver, and he's won a fair amount of races over the years. But the reason I mention that is the question is how do you pay for that? Because it's not the least expensive thing you could do. At one point a long time ago, we had put one of his go-karts up for sale, and this guy hits me up and says, "Hey, would you be willing to trade instead of doing cash? And I'm thinking like, okay, here we go. What do you got? He said, I have a 4-inch Smith& and Wesson 500, and I have a bunch of reloading equipment. I can teach you how to make the ammo for it. So fast forward, how did I learn how to reload? It was because I ended up with a Smith& and Wesson 500 Magnum, the 4-inch model,
Yeah.
and a Lee hand press, some powder, some primers, some projectiles, and a person who taught me how to reload properly.
Because
And
you were trading a go-kart.
yes, I traded a
Sounds like a
go-kart.
great deal, actually.
Hey,
It
man,
traded,
some of those carts are, I don't know. I'm not sure.
so it was a pretty, so cash value is a pretty fair trade. But I mean, you're right. Carts can be way more expensive than guns. But yeah, so I got into reloading 500 Smith& and Wesson, and very safely and knock on wood with no incidents, became pretty proficient at that. And Ken, you'll understand this experience, like a lot of reloaders. And I'm thinking, well, this hand press is a lot of effort. What if I get a single stage press? What if I
Right.
get a progressive press? And maybe I can load more 500 Magnum if I get a progressive press, because the hand press ain't great for loading 500 Magnum. So
No.
so and then it turned into just like what every reloader's like. Well, what other calibers do I need to reload? Oh, I can reload 9 millimeter. 9 millimeter is not saving you any money, at
No.
least around these parts. You're pretty much break even with factory ammo, but it's a fun hobby.
Yeah.
So where do I get the brass? And so where brass buyers came from was a range where I was renting their facility to do training, was also letting me like take home some brass, but I was only taking home what I wanted for me. One of the interesting things that made this relationship work with this range, as far as taking casings home, is they were a mixed metal range. So you could go there and you could shoot brass, aluminum, steel. Some ranges don't let
Oh,
you shoot steel. This particular range allowed you. In fact, they rented an AK and you paid per magazine, and the magazines were loaded with steel case. So this range had a little bit. They're not in business anymore, by the way. But many years ago, when they still were in business, they had this issue where it was very difficult for them to offload their buckets of casings because it was mixed metal. So if you're a range that's strictly brass only, it's not very hard for you to take those 5-gallon buckets of brass to your local metal recycler and turn that into cash that you can, do whatever with. Maybe it's profit for the range or whatever. But when that bucket is full of aluminum and steel and shotgun shells and all
right.
kinds of stuff, you can't just take it to your local metal recycler. They're just going to give you their basic 10 cents a pound scrap price or whatever it is. And
Right.
so brass buyers came from, hey, can I, take this stuff? Oh, yeah, sure, you can take it. Hey, can I just buy a whole bucket from you? And they said, yeah, sure, take it. So I'd come home, I'd sort the bucket, I'd get the steel and aluminum out of the bucket,
Hmm.
I'd sort down, I'd have my 9 millimeter, I'd have, my 38s and 357s and 5.56, and then there was like all this other stuff I didn't need that was in there. So I was thinking, well, what do I do with it? And I started selling some of it on Gunbroker. And in fact, you can find brass buyers on Gunbroker. We have probably like A plus rating with 600-ish very positive reviews. And so Gunbroker is an amazing platform for selling once fired brass, but at the same time, you're also paying fees, which are totally fair fees. They're running the website, they're hosting it, this
Yeah.
and that. But you are paying the fees, and 9 millimeter brass, for example, there's just not a lot of profit in it. So I had this idea. Well, what if I started my own website where I could take this extra brass that I don't need and I can
Right.
sell it on my own website? And then I was thinking, well, what if I could, with the exact same website, allow people to submit a request form to sell me their brass? And the value proposition of this is very simple. You go on the website, you pick a selection, whether you want cash, store credit, or charitable donation. Those each have different prices. You enter your information, and you receive a confirmation letter. You ship us your brass at the end of the month. We weigh it up. We send you pictures of what we weighed up, and we mail you a check.
Is
And
it negotiable? Are the prices negotiable, or are they fixed by caliber? And the second part of that question is, do they need to clean it, or can they send it dirty?
yeah, so good question. Well, let me finish up on the range story real quick. So what I ended up negotiating with this range is, hey, if I would commit to buying all of your buckets every month, I'm not going to ask you to like sign a contract or anything, but if I just like I'll come once a month with empty buckets, give them to you, and you'll give me your full buckets, and I'll pay you per bucket for your mixed metal buckets. Would you commit to selling me all of your buckets every month? And they said, yeah, we'll do that. It was a way for them to offload these buckets that were otherwise very difficult for them to get rid of for any amount of money. And so we negotiated what we both felt was a fair price. And I ended up bringing home dozens of buckets per month from this range that I had to then extract all the steel, which was relatively easy. Steel's easy to get out.
Yeah, magnets. Yeah.
I have this big magnet broom. I would actually dump the buckets out on a tarp and run this magnet broom over them, and it would just pick up all the steel. I could,
Yeah.
the aluminum, oh my gosh, that's time consuming. So because you're literally like on your hands and knees picking that stuff up off the tarp. But at any rate, that's how we started filling up the inventory on the website with brass to sell. And also at the same time, we were getting in brass from customers. You'd asked about price negotiation and stuff like that. It's a really good question. So what we offer today, sitting here today, the day where we're recording the podcast, is we offer $1.50 a pound cash for brass. It can come in any condition. It could be a range bucket you dumped into a USPS flat rate box, although we don't recommend doing that because you literally, when you fill out a form on our website, you're checking a box that says, I hereby state that I am not shipping you any live ammo. We don't want any of your live ammo. But hypothetically, I mean, you could take your bucket of casings and just put it in a USPS flat rate box and send it to us. And that's how we get most of our brass today is in a flat rate box. Very few people are shipping it to us any other way. It can be indoor range, it can be outdoor range. It does not need to be sorted. It does not need to be cleaned. I'll caveat that here in just a second, and it can be any caliber. So, have we received a large USPS flat rate box full of 22 LR casings? Yes. And I'll get back to that here in a second. But yes, we will take those. Have we received very nicely, neatly organized in different baggies by Headstamp? We have received that too. So there is some level of price negotiation, but not for common calibers. So one of the options on the website is what we call a unique brass quote. So if you were to go out to brassbuyers.com in the cash for brass section, there's a unique quote and there's a drop down list of unique calibers. So if you came to me and said, "Hey, I've got 5 boxes of I don't know what to think of 303 British or you know
There you go. Yeah.
what was it seven, I'm gonna get this wrong 7.5 jab
Swiss. Or
or
yeah.
Swiss. Yeah, sorry. Yep. So if you have those, you fill out this form, and I'll respond within a couple days with a price per piece for those, and in some cases may or may not help with shipping. So we had a customer recently hit me up saying, "Hey, I've got 200 pieces of 45 Colt, which we will custom quote." We custom quoted it. The thing is what we were going to end up paying for 200 pieces wasn't going to cover their shipping.
Yeah.
So we also offered to kick in a little to help with shipping as well. And, we got it, we counted it up, and we, of course, sent out a check. So there is some price negotiation there.
What if they don't want to check? I mean, now everyone's using Venmo and PayPal and things like that.
Yeah, good point. So we write checks to the mailing address of the person who fills out the request form on the website. So I don't have the ability to verify that somebody's Venmo account is what it is or their PayPal or whatever. So for accounting purposes on our side and for trackability, traceability, we are writing checks.
Does anyone ever say, I sent my brass in, you gave me what you're going to pay me, and I say, nope, didn't like that number?
No, you're pre-agreeing. So when you go
Okay,
on the
so all
website
the
to
agreement is done ahead of time, and at that point, the deal is done just once you weigh it and verify and things like that.
Yeah, so you're pre-estimating on the website. So when you go to brassbuyers.com, you click on sell us your brass. It's going to take you to the cash for brass page, and there's some options in the drop down there. One of them is cash for brass at $1.50 a pound. Just below that, you're going to enter the approximate weight of what you're shipping to us. So when you then complete the contact form with your name and email and everything, I get an email that shows me approximately how much you're going to be sending to me. And I compare that when we do our weigh and pay at the end of the month. That stuff is all compared. And actually, it's very important that customers are relatively close on the weights because there have been some occasions where somebody has not put enough tape on the box and it has arrived damaged and clearly stuff spilled out of it. I've received, those plastic USPS trays? I've received a totally shredded box in a tray with a bunch of loose brass in the tray, shrink
Oh,
wrapped by the Postal Service, delivered to me. I've had instances where somebody will send two boxes and only one will show up. And so we'll communicate back to the customer, we'll ask for tracking information. There have been some instances where either myself or the customer has had to open up a claim
yeah,
based on a box not arriving. It's rare, but we
yeah.
do put in the shipping instructions. Be very generous with the tape. Use lots of tape. Tape is your friend. We use lots of tape when we ship brass, and we encourage you to use lots of tape when you ship to us.
So what happens to the stuff that if it's damaged, like dented to the point where you can't use it? You already mentioned aluminum and steel, has the wrong kind of primer pocket. What do you do with that stuff?
Yeah, so let me just quickly touch on the menu. So there's the cash price, there's the store credit price. We'll pay you $1.80 a pound for store credit. We also have something called charitable donation, and what that means is, let's say you have some brass and you don't really care about, getting a check for 60, 70, 80 bucks or whatever the check is, but you like to make an end of the year donation to your church or your synagogue, let's say. You ship us your brass, and we will make a charitable donation to a charity of your choice, as long as they're a registered charity, which I think we all know how to look those up.
Sure.
We'll make that donation in your name at $2 a pound. So if you're looking for a way to make a charitable donation to an organization without taking money out of your bank account, send us your brass, and we'll do that for you at $2 a pound. When it comes to things we can't use, so I caveated dirty earlier. We have received some pretty grimy boxes that were clearly from an outdoor range, full of dirt and gravel, and so we have a cement mixer that we'll throw
Uh-huh.
that stuff into, and we'll give it a good cleaning with some Dawn and some water, and try and get the dirt and stuff out of it. That will definitely affect your weight. But I'll tell the customer that ahead of time. I'll send pictures saying, "Hey, we can't pay on this exact weight. The casings are packed with mud, right?
Right.
We need to get the dirt out." That is very, very, very rare. I don't want it to sound like, we do that all the time. That's very rare. And if it's just externally dirty, we're not worried about it. We're fine. We brass isn't clean unless you clean it, right? So, but if it's clearly just caked with dirt and stuff, over the years, I think we may have had two instances where we had to really put it through the cement mixer for a few hours before we were comfortable with the weight. But here's why we pay $1.50 a pound. If you live in a relatively urban area where you have easy access to a local metal recycler, you can get more money for your brass than you can selling it to brass buyers. Um, because we're not paying the market scrap price for brass. And the reason we're not paying that market scrap price for brass is because we have to process and handle it. So the first thing is if we receive anything that's damaged, that is going to be recycled by us at our local recycler. we get mixed brass. So if you send us a box and there's a little bit of 22 LR in there, we need to take that to our local recycler. So we can't do that for break even, right? I mean, we have the trip to the recycler, we aggregate this stuff, we have to take it there. So we need to be able to cover ourselves for stuff like that. But also we know our data really well. So 45 to 50% of what we receive in a mixed brass box is going to be 9 millimeter. And then the next, call it 20 to 25%, is going to be what we'll refer to as 223 556
Yeah.
mix, right? So somewhere between 70 to 75% of what we receive, or maybe call it 65 to 75% of what we receive, is going to be 9 millimeter or the 223 556 mix.
Yep.
9 millimeter accumulates very quickly around here. And the challenge with having a lot of 9 millimeter once fired inventory is 9 millimeter is also the least profitable to turn around and resell. And if you don't believe me, go on GunBroker and see how much does it cost to buy 1,000 pieces of 9 millimeter once fired brass. It's going to be like probably $30,
How do
maybe
you
30.
even know if it's once fired also? You don't know how many times things have been through the gun, right?
No, 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 we literally don't. So
Yeah.
we use the term once fired brass just as more of an industry term. We actually do not commit that we know anything about the history of the
Nor
gun.
does and I submit, nor does anybody else.
Sure.
Or,
Right.
yeah.
Nobody knows. Yeah.
No, you can physically inspect it, right? Especially after it's cleaned. So we do some level of inspection, but the point I wanted to make about why we're offering $1.50 a pound cash is that 9 millimeter accumulates very quickly, and it's just not worth a lot of money. And so if you look at the fact that 1,000 pieces of 9 millimeter doesn't sell for much, and then you have your cost, we buy our brass. We're not a range. We're not getting this brass at no cost, right? So we're paying $1.50 a pound for it, and then you look at the cost to ship it, and you look at how much we pay in credit card processing fees. These are all real legitimate costs. Sometimes what we'll do with 9 millimeter is we'll take half of our inventory and scrap it because we just don't have room for it. So we can't scrap it at break even, right? There has to be some value to us even to scrap it. So that's the difference between our price and the full scrap value price. But most of our customers and our repeat customers at Brass Buyers, very high. Over 80% of our customers are who actually send it. We get a lot of orders where people aren't sure, like, is this a scam or what is this, or do they really pay? We have probably about 10% of our orders, people never ship the brass to us. But for the ones that do, probably about 80% of our customers are repeat customers. Why? Because they send us brass, we send them mail. We're literally reducing their cost to shoot.
Well,
So,
isn't your model? I think you said $1.50 a pound, but didn't
yeah.
you say that it was $1.80 if it's store credit?
Yeah. So if you want to convert your 9 millimeter brass into 223,
That's a
you'll get,
20% benefit because you're, 30
yeah.
cents out of $1.50 is a 20% benefit. So you're getting a 20% benefit
Mhm.
against replacing the brass that's now been cleaned and prepared and things like that.
Yep. And most of our customers live in rural areas. We have a lot of older, retired veterans, especially that, they live in a rural area. They've been collecting their rifle brass for a long time. They finally have a full bucket of it and they don't know what to do with it. They don't have quick, easy access to a local metal recycling company. And by the time they drive to one, they might as well just ship it to us. And so a lot of our customers are in more rural neighborhoods. And I know this because I'm mailing them a check. So I can look up, oh, where is this city? I've never heard of, you know, this place before and see where these checks are going. Also, some of the brass, as you mentioned, don't have the correct primer. So there's been some 308 that in Berdan primer that we've been very unlucky to receive. We're paying $1.50 a pound for the brass. We don't know that it's Berdan primer until we inspect it. And to be totally honest and fair, occasionally a couple of those will slip out the door in an order if a customer contacts us and says, "Hey, some of this 308 you sent me was Berdan primer." No questions asked. We will replace those pieces immediately. We don't even want the old pieces back. It's not worth it. Just we will we have made it right on every instance where there's been an issue related to Berdan primers because there's no inspection equipment that is anywhere near affordable for brass buyers to actually be able to inspect for Berdan primer. These casings have primers in them.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't know what the flash hole looks like unless we take a flashlight to it and look. Now, I will caveat that and say there are some calibers we do purposely inspect for Berdan. So when we receive 762 by 39 brass and 762 by 51 brass, we will literally flashlight those to check for Berdan primer because it's just so common.
It's the more common. I mean, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, interestingly, we get a lot of Boxer primer 762 brass, but it's certainly more of the rule than the exception for those calibers. So we do flashlight those. 30 carbine will flashlight, but we can't possibly take a flashlight to every piece of 308 that
No.
we see. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And of the two different primer types you basically talk about there, I mean, for those who don't reload, there's Boxer primed, which oddly enough was invented in Europe and became popular in the United States, and Berdan prime, which was invented in the United States and became popular pretty much everywhere else. Berdan primed is very difficult to reload. Can be done. There are ways to do it. There are tools to do it, but most people don't do it. Vast majority of people don't. Vast majority of people, probably 98%, 99%, will only deal with a Boxer primed, which is what you could typically find if you buy something here in the United States. The other stuff is it's just too difficult unless it were, wartime without real law situation. I wouldn't even
Yeah.
try it.
I'm not going down that path of trying
Exactly.
to do that. Just I'm too
Sure.
No,
lazy. So
it'd be very difficult.
I was going to say our business model is very simple. We will buy your brass. We will always buy your brass. We get a lot of emails and phone calls. Well, what if I only have this, or what if I only have that, or do you buy this caliber or whatever? The answer is yes. We buy generally 22 LR to 50 BMG. If it's a unique caliber, we will custom quote it. If you don't like our price, we're not going to be mad at you. No big deal. We understand, there's a particular customer fit for this, but the value proposition is simple. If there's a caliber of brass you need to buy, we may have it in stock for you. Hopefully we do, and we can sell it to you. If you have brass that you want to sell, you've got a 5 gallon bucket of brass that your significant other is screaming for you to get it out of the garage, mail it to us. And, within 30 days, you will get a check in the mail to pay you for that brass. We have not had any issues from that perspective with what our value proposition is. You send the brass in, and we're paying you for it.
So to finish out here, as we close out the show, you got any from either of your businesses, High Value Training Academy or Brass Buyers, particularly unique or unexpected stories that you want to share, and then along those lines, that after you finish that part, where do people find you? Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have any other events that are close term that you said that, this year is not already mapped out in terms of community events, but those things are coming? Or any other comments about your website or anything? The floor is
Sure.
yours on that.
Sure. Thank you. As far as our community events go for high value training, 2026 is mapped out right now. All of the events through December 2026 are available for registration right now on the website. It's other things that we want to do that aren't up on the site yet. So just to clarify that real quick, I do have a great story, high value training story. This just happened recently in one of our full day classes. So there's a point in class where I tell everybody, okay, let's take a 10-minute break. This is a good time to either go get food or order your food. If you brought your lunch, then it's just a 10-minute break. We'll get to lunch when we get to lunch. But if you're going to order food or if you're going to go out to a restaurant to buy food, this is a good time to go do it. So we all place our DoorDash order from our phones during that break. And 20 minutes later, DoorDash driver comes into the facility. Now, let me give you an idea of the facility too, because I have a feeling that this may have been an uncomfortable situation for the DoorDash driver. The building that we're in, I don't know this for a fact, but I think it probably used to be a school. a long time ago. It has a wing on it that has legitimate dedicated classrooms, what a classroom would have looked like maybe when we were in school when we were kids. There's two floors. The primary indoor shooting range is a double decker with a total of 21 stalls, top and bottom. Looks like it could have been a gymnasium, right? So I'm just guessing that this building may have been a school at one point. To get to the classrooms, you come in the side door of this building. You walk all the way down the hall, past the private range, past the entrance to the main range, past the retail store, past the rental desk. You go through a separate set of double doors. You go down a little further and you hang a right, and that's where the classrooms are. So DoorDash driver shows up with one of the students' meals. And of course, we're a very charitable organization. And I offer this to every DoorDash driver that's ever delivered a meal because I know how that application works. You can turn it off anytime you want. And so I would ask them, hey, you want to stay for class? And if they say yes, I've never had anybody say yes, but if anybody were to say yes, I would hand them the books and they could finish up that class. And if they want the completion certificate for that class, they can, come back another time and do the first part of the class. No problem. So I said to the DoorDash driver, hey, you want to stay for class? And almost like it was scripted in a movie, he turned around, said nope, started walking quickly through the door, pulled up his pant leg to show us his ankle monitor, and got out of there.
Oh,
So I don't know. I mean, we don't know who this person is. We didn't really talk to him, but I don't know if he was allowed to be in the building. I don't know anything about it, but we got a, a great laugh out of that after the shock wore off of what we just saw.
maybe
You're
he
like,
got a
no,
good
not
tip out of it.
not an ankle holster, an ankle monitor. Ah, yes. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Let's see, a fun brass fire story. Um, that's such a behind the scenes business. I guess one of my favorite brass fire stories is I think I mentioned this earlier, but somebody hit me up asking like, "Do you guys take 22 LR?" And of course, we take 22 LR. And they shipped us a large flat rate box full of 22 LR, like no padding or anything, just you know a
Gotcha.
giant bag of 22 LR that took up the entire space of the box. And I was just thinking in my head that, oh, they think they got one over on us. They you know they were able to get rid of what was probably just garbage, to
Yeah.
them. So that was a fun story. With brass fires, actually, I have more painful stories than fun stories because, me and the couple people that helped me out with all the sorting brass at those quantities is not fun. It's not something you want to add to your Saturday afternoon, but it's obviously necessary for the business.
You should call or contact Corbin, who makes they have a way of taking 22 long rifle cases and turning them into 223 projectiles.
That's a good point. We don't have a big inventory of them because we tend to turn them over to the recycler very quickly, but
That's what I'm saying. But if you got a bunch of in like that, I mean, you might want to talk to Corbin and say, hey, if people are looking for a whole bunch of the cases, 1,000
Mhm.
cases or whatever you want to turn into projectiles, 223 projectiles, it can be done. They actually have the
Mhm.
tools for doing it. I don't know, just
And there's some fun benefits to brass fires. I have a home build AR in 50 Beowulf.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
sort of an oddball caliber. There's a lot of opinions, pluses and minuses to 50 Beowulf. I like it a lot, but what I really like it a lot for is that a lot of the components for reloading 50 Beowulf are very similar to my 500 Magnum.
yeah,
So the powder is now the recipes are different, but the powder is the same. The projectile is the same up to certain grain weights. The primers are similar. If you read the recipes, one uses a Magnum rifle primer, one uses a Magnum pistol primer. You can debate whether those may or may not be interchangeable.
right.
Certainly I'm not advocating for that, but they're close enough. So when I was building some of my ARs years ago, I built a 50 Beowulf. When you have a business like Brass Buyers, you can accumulate over a long period of time lots of 50 Beowulf. So I have pretty significant reloaded on my own 50 Beowulf. In fact, my story is that I have literally never bought 50 Beowulf Factory.
Cool.
I've only ever reloaded 50 Beowulf because I've been able to collect enough of it over the years.
Yeah, that's good. I always wanted to get a 458 SOCOM in an AR
Mhm.
platform. That's another one of those odd ones. Similar.
Well, we'll be seeing those at Shot here very soon, and
Indeed, we will.
that is
Looking
an
forward to
upcoming
shot.
show. So I want to remind the listeners that you can find High Value Training Academy at highvaluetraining.org, O-R-G, and you can find Brass Buyers at brassbuyers.com. And is there any other outreach that you want the listeners to be aware of there in terms of
Yeah.
email addresses or anything else?
So you can contact me directly if you need anything related to either organization, Jeff at highvaluetraining.org, Jeff at brassbuyers.com. For the training, if you have general questions, we have a info at highvaluetraining.org email address that you can use. You can always reach out and call anytime. Admittedly, the five people we have on the board, none of us are good with social media. If there's anybody out there that would like to volunteer their time to a very worthy charitable organization to help us with social media, we would love it. And if you're hearing this and you would like to make a charitable donation to High Value Training, if you go to highvaluetraining.org, right in the top right corner, there's a link that says donate to us, and we'll send you a thank you letter for your charitable donation. Also, High Value Training has a very active Facebook page. And interestingly, we were able to get high value training. So if you go to facebook.com/high value training, you'll find us there. We were kind of lucky, I felt like, to get that. Brass buyers, not as much. The social media platforms hate brass buyers. They have given us our fair share of strikes to the point where we have just kind of stopped using them. We've received feedback from social media platforms. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not picking on social media. But we've received the, hey, you're in the business of selling what they refer to as components. We sell casings, once fired or fired casings. We don't sell primers, we don't sell powder, we don't sell projectiles. We just sell the casings, but the social media platforms do not like brass buyers. So,
Well, it's a component. I mean, it's a component of a component, and they're today along the same lines. I got a notification from Meta that said that our page was not being recommended any longer, and it had to do with a post where. And by the way, many listeners don't know this yet, but Dan Young's Outdoor Call radio app, we're now broadcast on that every Monday, and Dan picks a show and then runs it in a loop with other shows that are all very, very good shows. And I announced that as an event, like we're now being hosted on this show. And I guess that they saw some sort of a problem with that, and I don't know what the heck is a problem with that.
mhm.
Because we're not
So
selling anything. I'm just saying that we're now hosted on another platform. So it doesn't take much.
mhm. So one of the things we've focused on with brass buyers is our search engine optimization for the website, our SEO. You guys could try this right now while we're talking. If you go on Google and just type "sell my brass," what's the first website that comes up?
I don't know.
I'll do it
Ken,
right
can you do
now.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it right
You're an
now.
IT guy. You can do that.
Yeah.
I can. I can. Give me a moment here.
Well, so our goal with SEO was to make it as stupid simple as possible to find us, because other than word of mouth, it's very difficult to advertise brass buyers. So
Hitting enter right now. Brass buyers, number one. There you are.
yeah. So you don't even have to know brassbuyers.com. If you just Google sell my brass, you don't even have to say once fired brass casings or anything like that. If you just Google sell my brass buyers is probably the first thing that comes up. We
Yep.
have good scores for that in our search engine optimization, and that generates a fair amount of traffic for us.
You know, it's kind of funny that you just, I mean, that's an interesting idea because we do follow this site called Pod SEO, which allows, or Pod SEO, I think some people call it, which allows you to understand where you are in SEO, which if people don't understand what that means, it's search engine optimization. and I just put in Cheap Firearms Podcast, which I've never done before, and boom, we're the first two hits. So pretty happy about that. But thank you for that. Thank you for that inspiration there, Jeff. Appreciate that.
I know nothing about search engine optimization. Our web developer is a master at it, and he wants me to be he's the Jedi master. He wants me to be a master at it.
Now you're the apprentice.
I'm fairly technical, but I'm way better with a 9mm than a lightsaber. So, I really rely on him to optimize these things for us. And if he says, hey, I recommend this, my feedback is usually, great, do it. You have my blessing.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on the show, Jeff.
Great. Really enjoyed the opportunity to speak with you, Jeff. It's all very good.
Yeah, guys, I really appreciate it as well. I have to admit, this is the first time I've ever done a podcast.
Is it?
It is, but I'm fairly good at dancing. Like I said, I can get in front of a room and talk, and I'm not shy on a stage, and I love talking about the company. So I thought I'd be all right at doing this today.
So high value training, and particularly something that's closer to my heart, which is reloading and so forth with the Brassfire site. I would encourage all of our listeners to definitely take a look at both of those websites, and let us know if you want us to do more shows, particularly related to reloading, which is something which I think can definitely help drive down the cost of enjoyable shooting. And
yeah, this has been, an unusual show because it's the first time we've done shows that have multiple unrelated products with the same guest. So that made it somewhat different. And what's coming next is going to be a lot of unrelated products. Just for reference, SHOT Show is now 10 days away as we record this. So we'll be at Industry Day, we're covering a lot of stuff in live fire, and then we'll be walking our feet off for several days at the floor, trying to find you guys the best products. And what else are we going to on the night of the 19th, Ken?
we will be heading to the Gundies Awards.
Yeah, why is that? Because we got nominated.
We were nominated for the Gundies Award, which was great. I don't think we were the last 5 people. I think they only let you know if you're in the top 5. But hey,
Yeah,
if we continue to do this, maybe next year we'll be in the top 5, guys.
maybe so. Yeah, out of 35, I think it was 35 podcasts that were nominated for Podcast of the Year. The
Yep.
fact that we were nominated was just great
Fantastic.
by itself. So
Yep.
look forward to that show coming up. And if you've listened to our previous podcast review of SHOT Show, we will not be recording it in my car. And you'll understand the reference when you get back to that show.
Indeed.
So, thanks much for listening, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, no, I'm not, no, wife, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Ken.